Normally, the season would always begin around the golf tournament, right? We were all happy to see the guys out there swinging the clubs and having a good time, but no more. Now, the official start of the season is rookie camp. Why? Because we see the boys go out, they run through their exercises, they take their measurements, and then they hit the ice. And that's what they did yesterday. Getting everybody excited and seeing some magic already on the ice and some funky comments as well. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Costa here from Puck Talk Montreal. And before we get into talking about rookie camp and how important it is, let's take a look back at what we said yesterday about Sidney Crosby. Now, as you all know, because everybody in Montreal is talking about it, Crosby made some comments about being flattered about Montreal wanting him to be here. And then Pat Brisson, his agent, came out and made a whole big hoopla about, the possibility of him moving on to somewhere else, including saying, let's put it this way. It's always a possibility, And it got us to thinking, why in the world would a guy's agent do that when there's nothing for sure yet? Crosby's got 2 years left. He's going to the Olympics this year. What's going to happen? Well, Melnick in the afternoon and Mitch Melnick brought it up beautifully. And so I had to agree with it. And that is that Pat Brisson is also the agent for one Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, Dubois famously used Montreal not once but twice to get himself a better contract. And here's the thing. Other players have done that as well. Before coming to the Canadiens, Daniel Briere had done that as well before he went to Philadelphia. So, guys are notorious for trying to use Montreal as a stepping stone to get to their ultimate destinations and their ultimate amount of money. I don't think money is the issue here as far as Crosby is concerned. Moreover, it's the competitiveness. We know how competitive Sidney Crosby is. He's still producing at his age at 38 years old, right? So he's competitive. He wants to win. So because of that, you would think, why would Brisson want him to come to Montreal? After all, the Canadiens aren't anywhere near winning a Stanley Cup or being, competitive to get into the late rounds of the playoffs. Could it happen? We saw it happen in 2021. But if you take a look at things and the natural progression of the Habs, we're not there yet. If we win the first round this year, it's another step in the right direction. That's the way I look at it. Could they go further? Sure. But I'm not going to hold my breath. Make the playoffs, win the first round. That'll be a positive season for Montreal, I think, in my mind. But then you take a look at Pittsburgh, and most of their players being 30 and older. And so what's Kyle Dubas been doing lately? You want to see him make the team younger, or at least that's what Crosby wants. So what better way to do that than to threaten to leave? And it's not like he said it outright that he wants to leave, but he also didn't close the door on the fact that, Crosby could have easily turned around and said, I'm not leaving Pittsburgh. I'm going to retire there. I want to spend the rest of my career there. If that was said, close the door on everything. We're not talking about Crosby coming to Montreal. But now, because he acknowledged it and he didn't say no to the possibility of leaving Pittsburgh, it's got people thinking. Well, stop thinking. The Canadiens aren't going to give up their young nucleus in order to pick up Sidney Crosby for 2, 3, or maybe 4 years. Although we would want to see it, it would be a hell of a lot less than that, most likely picks and prospects to get Crosby out of Pittsburgh. And that's essentially all Pittsburgh's going to get. They're not going to get anybody tangible from somebody's roster. Okay? I don't think they will anyway. But the more logical step for Crosby, if you wanted to get competitive now, is not to leave Pittsburgh and come to Montreal. It would be to leave Pittsburgh and go to Colorado, as an example, to play with McKinnon, or go to any number of other cities that have competitive teams, whether it's Tampa, the Florida Panthers, you name it. There's all kinds of competitive teams out there. And, what would happen if Sidney Crosby decided to go to the LA Kings, as an example? I think everybody would lose their minds. But that's enough to be said there, right? So don't put any much more thought into it. From what I've heard, there are a lot of teams that are calling Dubas and inquiring about whether or not Crosby is available now, and Dubas is just shooting it down. So don't look for action now. It's going to happen closer to the trade deadline if it does happen. But in the meantime, Dubas is going to have to do some work to try to get some picks in order to make the team better moving forward. If he does that, Crosby stays where he is. But the best part of this is Nobody knows. Will Dubas do it? If the guys that he's trading for are analytics babies, then absolutely. Numbers are everything to Kyle Dubas. It's not all about what you do on the ice. In fact, it's not even close to what you do on the ice. So it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. But again, Crosby, in my mind, is not coming to Montreal. It's out of my head. One of the things that I also heard today in passing was about Kirby Dach. Everybody is talking about Dach and how well he's doing as far as his skating is concerned and his rehabilitation is concerned, and that's all fine and dandy. But if there's one thing that we know about hockey is that your knees take the biggest pounding of any part of your body. And the only time you can really test your knees is when you have somebody leaning on you, hitting you, etc. So that's going to be the point where we're going to have to watch it. The preseason is going to be a real precursor to what Kirby Dach can bring. If he could skate up and down the ice, not worry about getting hit, and he could provide some offense, then maybe, just maybe, the Canadiens don't have to shop for a second-line center. But I digress. We'll see what happens. Now let's talk a little bit about rookie camp. And we've got some video here with Demidov going in on goal. And that's all you see from Demidov. Shifty moves, smiles, etc. And that's what you want to see during rookie camp. Here's Oliver Kapanen making some moves during a drill. And, you know, this is the fast pace that you would see, going up and down the ice, taking shots. And then you see the camaraderie, too. The guys get in there and they start cheering with each other and whatever. And that's what you want to see from the team's rookies. You want them to get to know each other. You want them to build, maybe not chemistry, but a little bit of camaraderie. Because after all, they've got 2 games this weekend that are going to be really important. Not necessarily in the grand scheme of things right now, immediately for the Montreal Canadiens, but for their careers. There are certain players in the lineup, like Owen Beck, like David Reinbacher, that are going to try to make the Montreal Canadiens this season. The guy with the biggest outside shot, of course, is Demidov. He's going to be there. But other than that, David Reinbacher has an outside shot to make the team this year, because everybody is saying that Reinbacher is NHL ready. The preseason is going to be really important for him, as is his rookie camp. If he dominates defensively on the blue line at rookie camp, goes into the preseason and plays well there as well, then the Canadiens are going to have some decisions to make. But the biggest X factor in this development camp is Florian Jacki. He came in, normally he plays at around 205 pounds, but he came in at 220 pounds. And of course, he's 6'3". So he's put on about 15 pounds of muscle. What did he attribute that to? And that's the thing. It's not that he just gained weight, he gained muscle on his legs. I mean, if you see some of the pictures out there, and you can look them up online, his legs look defined and strong. Maybe not as strong as Demidov, but they still look defined and strong. And he's still got some work to do. He's still a young guy. But for a guy that's coming out of a season where he scored 24 goals in the American Hockey League, he's really raising some eyebrows. Pascal Vincent, of course, interviewed by Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire, said that he was really surprised by Jacki's hockey IQ. So the fact that he's a tough guy, or he could be if he wanted to be, you know, he led, I think he had 175 minutes in penalties last year in the American Hockey League. You know, the fact that he could score goals, the fact that he could set up plays and do all of that, you know, people are talking about him replacing Michael Pezzetta. He'd be better than Michael Pezzetta. And, you know, Vincent's Rohrer was also saying that, you know, he's looking at himself more in the third and fourth line role. Well, he's got some internal competition, because before he gets picked, Florian Jacki is going to get a hell of a longer look, in my opinion. And then you have Jacob Fowler talking about Ivan Demidov. And when you get a goalie complimenting a player, you know the guy's special. And basically Fowler turned around and said that he's a special player and an even better person off the ice. His talent is some of the highest I've ever seen. It's always the way he works with it. It's only going to get better. And that's some high praise coming from the goaltender, because he knows Demidov hasn't even capped his skill yet. He's still only 20 years old. And there's a lot of room for him to improve. So this rookie camp so important on so many levels for these players. In some cases, for guys like Blake Pickford, Owen Protz, Arseny Radkov, it's their first kick at the can, their first chance to really show the Montreal Canadiens what they can do. And then you've got main camp. And who's going to stay from rookie camp to help the Montreal Canadiens or possibly make the team? I foresee, like I said, David Reinbacher. Of course, Demidov's going to be there. Owen Beck, I presume, going to be there. I'm thinking that Florian Xhekaj is going to be there. What about Philip Meshar? We don't know. Depends on how he does this weekend. Again, nothing's for sure. But the real beauty of the rookie camp is there's not one kid on that roster that doesn't belong there and doesn't have an outside shot of being a good player. Owen Protz, starting in the CCHL, owning his craft, going to the OHL, now probably going to end up in the American Hockey League, but you're talking about a kid who really came from the bottom, much like John Kovacevic. Kovacevic played for the Hawkesbury Hawks in the CCHL, ended up going to the NCAA, drafted in the third round by the Winnipeg Jets. So there's a lot to be said about these kids that come into rookie camp and make an impression. And seeing the roster, I think they're going to absolutely have a really strong group, and they're going to make the Canadiens make some decisions as far as the main camp is concerned. Now, coming into the show, I mentioned something about some big news coming up this weekend for me. And it is big news. As I've mentioned before on the show, I'm the director of hockey operations for not just one junior team, but two. I work alongside former NHLer Sean Anderson. And we've got two teams. One, the Hawkesbury Knights, and the other, the St. Lazare Avalanche. Both of them play in the USPHL Premier League, Quebec, Ontario division. Now, the Knights have been around for a year, and they've got their home opener coming up this Saturday, September 13th, at about 7 p.m. at the Robert Hartley Sports Complex in Hawkesbury. But even more importantly, the St. Lazare Avalanche have their inaugural game this coming Sunday afternoon at 3:45. I will be at both games, not only in my executive capacity, but I'll be broadcasting them on Black Bear TV and doing the play-by-play, which is, of course, one of my passions. So if you're out and about, and I know the Illotort Bridge is going to be closed this weekend as they open up another lane. They haven't gotten to 6 yet, but we're getting to 5. We're closer. But if you happen to be out and about in the Vaudreuil, St. Lazare region, especially on Sunday, come by the rink. Come support a bunch of kids that are trying to make their hockey dreams come true. All right? The Avalanche will be playing the Knights in back-to-back games this weekend, so I'll be busy with both teams running back and forth between locker rooms and trying to keep the peace. But come out. Tickets are $10 for adults, $7 for seniors and teenagers, and $5 for kids. It's a cheap day out, a fun time at a junior game that's going to have all kinds of excitement. So come out. In St. Lazare, the games are at the Quartier des Sports Kubota, the former sports complex on Bedard Avenue. And, of course, the Robert Hartley Sports Complex is on Cartier in Hawkesbury. Come out. It's a fun time. If you don't have that much to do and you're looking for something cheap to do on the weekend to have some fun with a kid maybe or your family, bring them out. There's a Poutsineville at the St. Lazare rink. You can't miss out there. And, of course, in the comments, tell me what you think about the rookie camp and what your expectations are. Who do you foresee coming out of the camp? Do you agree that Xhekaj is going to have a really good shot at getting to the main camp? Do you think that Beck, Kapanen, I forgot to mention him, of course, Reinbacher, don't say Demidov because that's the obvious one. But who else would you think should get a chance at the main camp? I think 5, maybe 6 guys could come to the camp from the rookies. And I think that's a great number to have. And that should be a consistent number every year. It gives a little bit of hope to these players. But tell me what you think. How much importance do you put on the rookie camp every year? Do you think it's an important part of the preseason? Or is it just another event that comes and goes and you don't really care about? I know a lot of people are going to the prospect games because you're hungry for hockey. So let me know. Who do you think might be, a dark horse that might come out of the camp? Somebody like a Prickford? Maybe a Protz? Tell me. And we'll see you next week.